Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you a comparison video today between the three current top-end models from Adidas, the X, the Ace, and the Messi 15.1. If you are trying to decide between any of these three shoes, this video should help you out a lot because we're going to talk about what all the differences are in terms of tech specs, performance features, the uppers, the sole plates, the stud patterns, the weight of the shoes, how they fit and feel, everything you need to know. That's hopefully going to allow you to make the proper decision in terms of which of these three models is best suited towards what you're looking for. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around. And with that being said, let's get right into the comparison. To start things off, let's talk about the uppers. Now, what you really need to know in regards to the synthetic X, the synthetic Ace, and the Messi 15.1, which is only available in a synthetic upper variation, is that none of these shoes are particularly padded. They didn't go for that synthetic leather feel. If you want a padded leather sensation, that's why they came out with the leather X and the leather Ace that are very different from any of the shoes I have on the table in front of me. All of these shoes trend towards being thinner synthetics with less padding overall, despite what the marketing might suggest, at least with the Ace. You'd expect them to feel a little bit different than they actually do. So if you want the thinnest feel of these three shoes, that is definitely what the X provides. It features an X-skin upper that is very thin, very soft, very flexible. I would say that out of the box, the feel of the upper on your feet is most comfortable on the X 15.1. It just feels the most natural and really requires no break-in time whatsoever. It does have a very, very slightly padded liner, but for the most part, it's very thin and provides a close to barefoot feel when making contact with the ball. The upper is reinforced with an X-cage system that is basically this graphic you see here on the lateral and medial side. It's not just there for looks, it's actually there to add structural integrity to the shoe. It's extra layers of material fused on top. You can see it going around the toe and forefoot area that is not as flexible and not as soft as the rest of the upper. So it reinforces those parts really well, works with the lacing system as you can see. So when you put the shoe on your foot, tie the laces tight, it really locks your midfoot in place and prevents it from sliding around while still maintaining a nice soft flexible feel from the synthetic itself. You're also going to find that just like the Ace 15.1, you do have the non-stop grip dots across the entire upper, which kind of gives it a slightly grippy sensation in dry weather conditions. In wet weather playing conditions, it adds a little bit of grip as well. It's a similar concept to Nike's ACC All Conditions Control technology, but at the end of the day, it's not really a make or break feature in my opinion. As far as the Ace is concerned, it is the second thickest shoe in the synthetic Adidas lineup, the three models. This features what was originally called a control web upper, and since Adidas seems to have renamed it to Total Skin, they've just changed the name. They haven't physically changed the material itself. And what it is kind of like a foam, hard foam kind of base synthetic with all of these little cutouts, as you guys can see, and then a polyurethane layer on top. So it is on the thinner side, as you guys can see by the side profile here. There's a very slight amount of kind of firm cushion from this base foam-like material. It's kind of the best way to describe it in terms of touch on the ball, but for the most part, they are relatively thin, which you will notice immediately when you shoot the ball for the first time. So it is, like I said, a little bit thicker than what you're going to find from the X and just has a firmer sensation overall, just because it's not the most soft material. It's flexible enough in terms of how it moves with your foot. There really isn't much break-in time required. It's more just getting used to how these shoes fit and feel on your feet. But I don't want to say it's a disappointing sensation. It just isn't kind of what I was expecting from this particular shoe. It's one of those shoes that I think most people will wear and most people would enjoy. There's nothing that's particularly definitive about the kind of feel of this shoe. It just feels like a good soccer shoe, and that's kind of the best way to describe it. It's not too thick, it's not too thin, it's kind of right there in the middle. But again, if you're looking for that soft padded sensation, that is not what this shoe provides. And again, you get the non-stop grip dots across the entire upper, and really not much grip on the ball either, which is again kind of deceiving just based on how the shoe looks. It looks like there's some kind of rubber element to it. There is not, and all the texturing on the upper as well really doesn't change or impact the feel of the ball either. It just feels pretty consistent across the entire upper. As far as the Messi 15.1 is concerned, this is probably the most unique of the three models in terms of the type of feel that it provides. It is the thickest upper, as you guys can see by the side profile, but I wouldn't call it overly padded. It's just a thick, thin upper, if that makes any sense. It's on the thicker side of thin uppers that are available either from Adidas or really any shoe manufacturer at this point in time. It features a very well named Messi Touch upper. They must have spent a lot of time coming up with that one. And then of course it has the Messi frame system, which is arguably the more unique characteristic, running towards the back heel area of the shoe. It's this rubber overlay cage that works with the lacing system and adds a lot of extra bulk to this shoe. When you slide it on your foot, it doesn't have a slim profile, which is what you might expect based on how the shoe looks. But it does feel really good. It's thin, but has that little bit of a padded sensation to it. And then you get a lot of bulk around the ankle area because of this Messi frame that I would argue doesn't have a huge impact in terms of the overall responsiveness of the shoe, although it does have to add some kind of rigidity to this back portion. For the most part, the shoe keeps your foot locked in place. It feels nice and solid. The synthetic upper is flexible enough and moves nicely with your foot. It's kind of like a thicker synthetic in comparison to what we got from the 2015 F50 Adi Zero. And it does have a little bit of a texturing to it, as you guys can see. Not something, again, you really notice when you're actually making contact with the ball. It has a kind of artificial leather grain finish to the surface of the upper, which I quite like. No real extra grip there, but you do get extra grip from this Messi frame because it is actually a rubber kind of material. So when you do strike the ball, especially right here on the foot, you are getting a rubberized element that technically isn't designed for shooting, but you will notice it when wearing the Messi 15.1. So in terms of grip on the ball, this one feels the grippiest out of the three models here, whereas the X and the Ace really don't provide much in the way of additional grip, period. So again, that's kind of how I would categorize these shoes. If you want the thinnest, kind of closest to barefoot feel, X 15.1 is the way to go. If you want the more padded, slightly thicker sensation, but still want a relatively thin and kind of lightweight feeling shoe, but don't necessarily mind having that little bit of extra bulk on your feet, Messi 15.1 is the way to go. Whereas if you kind of want that in-between type of feel, the Ace 15.1 is what you're looking for. Next, I want to talk about the cut of these three shoes. Normally, it's not something I would really mention in a comparison video, but since mid-cut shoes have become a thing and the X 15.1 has a particularly unique fit and feel in the heel area, I thought I would mention this. Now, if you want the deepest fit in both the heel as well as the entire shoe, the Ace 15.1 is the way to go. The sides come up the highest, the back comes up the highest. It has a nice synthetic suede liner, good padding, and they're just very comfortable from the get-go. Plus you get an external heel counter, which is exclusive to this particular model. You won't get it in the Messi or the X variations. The Messi is kind of not necessarily super low cut, which is kind of what you would expect from this type of a shoe. It has some decent height to the sides of the shoe as well as across the back, which again, I find very comfortable. I had no discomfort issues with this shoe whatsoever. It has a nice synthetic suede liner with good padding as well. And again, the overall comfort of this shoe, as well as the locked in sensation that you get, is very, very good. With the X 15.1, they've implemented this new TechFit collar system. You can see the branding there on the inside, hopefully. Yeah, there it is. And essentially what it is, it's kind of an elasticated neoprene material that basically wraps the top of your foot right here. It doesn't go past the stitching right here on the tongue, so it doesn't go all the way through. It's just something that wraps around your ankle here. So it makes the shoe a little bit more snug when you actually put it on. But once the shoe's actually on your foot, it's not something that you really notice. A lot of people have compared this system to the Flyknit models from Nike, be it the Superfly 4, the Obra, or the Hypervenom Phantom 2, and really it's nothing like that at all. It's just a layer of neoprene that kind of extends past what would otherwise be a standard low-cut soccer shoe that just changes the feel ever so slightly. It's not something that's super noticeable when you're actually wearing them, especially after the first couple wears and you kind of got used to how they feel. You just won't notice it at all. The only complaint I have with this system is actually the lining material in the heel, because it's also that same neoprene material that's comfortable against your foot. It's very soft, there's nice padding to it, but it doesn't grip your socks at all. It's very, very slick against the back of a sock. So you'll find that even when you tie the shoes very tight, there's always that little bit of heel slippage. Your heel kind of just comes up ever so slightly, not to the point where it's going to cause discomfort, not to the point where it's going to cause any blistering, but it's something that you do notice when you wear the X 15.1. It is, at least this is the case with most people that wear the X 15.1, not necessarily everybody, but if heel slippage is something that normally kind of bothers you in a soccer shoe, the X 15.1 may be a shoe to avoid, because like I said, heel slippage is a pretty common issue with this particular model due to that neoprene lining material. Next, let's talk about stud patterns. The new Adidas line is particularly interesting in that all of the shoes I have on the table are FG/AG, And this is the case with, like I said, all of the new Adidas models, high end and low end. This means that they are technically designed for use on firm natural grass as well as artificial grass, two playing surfaces that a lot of people are playing on within the same season. Normally it would require you to buy one pair of firm ground shoes and one pair of AG shoes for the two types of playing surfaces. But like I said, with the new Adidas models, one stud pattern can technically do it all. And I say technically because in my opinion, not all of these shoes are true FG AG stud patterns. Now, I've changed the order up, and that's for good reason, because we're going to save the Ace 15.1 for last here. But in the case of the X 15.1 and the Messi 15.1, their FG AG stud patterns definitely trend more towards being FG as opposed to AG, which I think you can clearly see by the look. If any of you guys have seen an AG stud pattern, especially Nikes, they look distinctively different than a firm ground stud pattern, and this just looks like a firm ground stud pattern. It's actually not too far off from what we've seen from Adidas in past models that were strictly FG. So this is a stud pattern that's loosely based off of what we've seen from several previous F50 Adizero models. Same goes for the Messi 15.1, triangular shaped studs. They're pretty much standard FG length. So again, they're a little bit too long in my opinion for use on firm natural grass, or on artificial grass, sorry, but you can get away with it. They just don't feel like AG stud patterns. They have a little bit of cling to them, which I don't necessarily love when using these on artificial grass. And like I said, it's more of a firm ground stud pattern in terms of how it's laid out. So I'm not saying you can't use this on artificial grass. I'm just saying that in my opinion, it's more of an FG stud pattern that Adidas is saying, hey, you can use it on artificial grass if you want, but it isn't a stud pattern that feels like it was designed to truly be used exclusively on artificial grass if need be. So like I said, they perform really well on artificial grass, just a little bit of a clingy sensation, and on natural grass, they work really, really well. They both dig into the ground nicely, provide pretty good bite, and in all honesty, the X as well as the Messi stud patterns feel pretty similar to me. They both have slightly stiffer sole plates that do become more flexible over time. And again, despite looking slightly different from each other, they feel pretty similar. So like I said, they both perform really well on firm natural grass. On artificial grass though, they'll get the job done, but in my opinion aren't really best suited for use on AG fields. In the case of the Ace 15.1, it features a stud pattern that is truly new and unique. We've never seen anything like this from Adidas before, and as you guys can see by how it's laid out, as well as the length of the studs, it truly does look like a hybrid FG AG stud pattern. On firm natural grass, the studs aren't as long, so if you're playing on slightly nicer fields, you may find that they're not digging in quite as deep as you'd like them to, just because they don't have the length of a standard FG stud. But because you have all these little studs in between, there's lots of little teeth kind of digging into the ground and providing that bite that you want. That gives you a good sensation of grip in pretty much all direction. All the studs are conical in shape, so they don't necessarily have that hard edge bladed grippy sensation, but because there are so many studs, it feels like you're digging into the ground really, really nicely and very evenly across the entire bottom of the foot, because you actually are, because studs cover the entire bottom of your foot. Also, because you have so many studs, it does give a sensation of stability as well. That's really unusual for a firm ground stud pattern, but you do get that from the Ace 15.1. And then on artificial grass, it works really well. It feels more along the lines of an AG stud pattern than these other two models. It doesn't feel clingy. You get the grip that you want. It provides really, really good traction. You never feel like you're stuck in the ground. You have that freedom to twist and pivot. And again, the overall performance is very, very good. So if you are playing on firm ground as well as natural grass within the same season and you want to buy only one pair of shoes, all of these models will technically get the job done because they are all designed for use on both types of playing surfaces. But if you want the one, in my opinion, that's best suited for both playing surfaces, it definitely is the Ace 15.1. As far as weight is concerned, none of the new Adidas models feel heavy on feet. With that being said, they're definitely not nearly as light as what we've seen from Adidas in past seasons, especially older F50 models. Nothing even comes close to those. But for the sake of comparison, I'm gonna weigh all three of these shoes for you today in real time using this scale. Keep in mind, these are all in brand new condition and all the exact same size 9 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the X 15.1, throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.8 ounces, the equivalent of 221 grams. So remember those numbers, pull these off the scale, and we'll throw on the Ace 15.1. You can see that they weigh in at 9.1 ounces, the equivalent of 257 grams, so about a full ounce more in comparison to the X15.1. Change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, and we'll throw on the Messi 15.1, and you can see that they weigh in at 8 ounces exactly, so about 0.2 ounces more than the X15.1, or the equivalent of 226 grams. So to summarize all of that, the X15.1 is technically the lightest of the three models, with the Messi 15.1 weighing in at 0.2 ounces more in the same size, which is a pretty insignificant amount of weight. So if you're looking for the lightest possible feel from one of the three new Adidas models, the X or the Messi 15.1 is what you want. They both feel about the same in terms of weight on feet, whereas the Ace 15.1 at 9 ounces is a full ounce more than the other two. Not a lot of weight, but something that you will notice on feet. They don't necessarily have that super lightweight feel, but at the same time, they aren't going to weigh you down. So at the end of the day, it is a matter of preference when it comes to the weight of your soccer shoes. Just know that the lightest is the X, the second lightest is the Messi, and then the heaviest of the three is the Ace 15.1. All right, so as you guys can see, I have the X 15.1 on my left foot and the Ace 15.1 on my right foot. These are the two main Adidas models that a lot of people are trying to decide between, and if you've watched my video up until this point, you've probably come to the conclusion that they're pretty different from each other in terms of what they have to offer. And when you're talking about fit and general feel, they're pretty different as well. The X 15.1 definitely has the lighter feel on your foot. It's the thinner upper. I would say that it feels a little bit more natural in terms of how it bends, whereas the total skin upper on the Ace, not to say that it doesn't feel natural, but you can kind of see how it bends and feel how it bends, as opposed to the X, which kind of just feels like the material is moving with your foot. Like I said, a little bit more closely, which I personally prefer. The X is definitely the tighter fitting of the two shoes, so if you want that kind of closer, thinner, barefoot sensation, again, the X 15.1 is the better choice over the Ace. The Ace 15.1 has a very deep fit. It's the deepest fitting shoe of all the current Adidas models, so lots of volume on the inside. So if you have a slightly wider foot, this is definitely the best option of all three synthetic models on offer. And they're also very, very comfortable. There's minimal break-in time required really with either of these two shoes. So in regards to width, Ace is definitely wider than the X. The X is a tighter fitting shoe, but still will fit most people, whereas the Ace 15.1 will just fit most people, period. And in regards to the overall sizing, I'm wearing my usual size 9 US in both of these models. They both run true to size. The fit is great, so if you're looking to order either the X or Ace, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. All right, so as you can see, on my left foot I have the X 15.1 again, and on my right foot I have the Messi 15.1. Now when you have these shoes on side by side, they're actually a very similar shape. The difference is mainly in the type of synthetic that does give the shoe a different feel. Like I mentioned, the X 15.1 is more of a tight barefoot sensation, whereas the Messi 15.1 is along those lines, but slightly higher volume while still maintaining the same shape. So it's a little bit wider all the way through and slightly taller, especially in the toe box. You're also going to notice a big difference between these two shoes when you're talking about the fit in the heel. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, the Tech Fit collar does lead to a very slight amount of heel slippage when you lift your heel pretty much every single time. It's something that you can get used to, but you'll always notice is there. So if that's something that you feel like is going to bother you a lot, maybe one of those shoes to stay away from. Whereas the Messi 15.1 has pretty much the same low cut, but heel slippage is not an issue whatsoever. They fit and feel really, really nicely. In terms of responsiveness, I would argue that the X 15.1 is a little bit better reinforced through the midfoot while also maintaining a kind of more slim profile. Whereas the Messi 15.1 has a lot of extra bulk when you look down at your feet, and also when you make contact with the ball. It's just not as thin a shoe as what you're going to get from the X 15.1, and a lot of that has to do with that rubber Messi cage system that, again, feels like it's doing something, but it doesn't feel quite as effective as the X cage here on the X 15.1. Width-wise, the Messi 15.1 is still a tighter fitting shoe, but slightly wider than the X 15.1, so it's going to be suitable for most foot types. But if you don't like wide, narrow fitting shoes, probably not the best option. And as far as stretch is concerned, they'll give a little bit in the Messi touch areas of the shoe, but for the most part, they don't really stretch much at all. And again, just like the X and the Ace, the Messi 15.1 does run true to size. I'm wearing my usual size 9 US here, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So any of the new Adidas models, stick true to size for the best possible fit. All right, guys, that is it for my comparison of the three current top-end models from Adidas, the X, the Ace, and the Messi 15.1. They're all very good shoes, and they're all different in their own respect. I know a lot of you guys will ask which is my favorite of the three shoes in today's video, and if I had to pick a personal favorite, I think it would be the Messi 15.1. I just like how that shoe feels. I prefer the amount of cushion that the upper actually provides. It's a comfortable shoe for me to wear. It's responsive. I quite like the stud pattern, and again, it's just a good all-around shoe that's kind of weird in terms of what it has to offer, but that's kind of what the new Adidas line is all about. Something different, something we've never seen before. So again, based on your preference, that's how you should go about choosing. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. If you have any questions at all regarding any of the shoes in today's video, be sure to leave your questions down below in the comment section. I definitely will get an answer out to you. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information down below in the description as well. And you can also check out the review pages for all three of these models on my website. Those will be linked down below in the description. And on those review pages, you will find Buy It Now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick up any of these three shoes below their normal $220 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, any of those three links, they'll all be down below in the description. Go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And of course, thanks for watching.